Year number 1 for Will Muschamp in South Carolina, yeah, it was a mediocre one. A 6-7 record in 2016. But last year, Will Muschamp's second season bounced back nicely with a 9-win season. And it could have been even better. They lost to an A&M squad that barely finished above 500, and the home loss against Kentucky, that's still a head-scratcher to this day. South Carolina, like I said, it could have been better. It could have been a double-digit winning season. But entering 2018, Will Muschamp has to address at least 2 big issues. Number 1, finding a way for the offense to get better. Despite the 9-win season, the Gamecocks still only average 24 points per game. The other issue is finding a way to still be a productive defense despite losing 6 of the 11 full-time starters. We're going to begin on offense, though, for South Carolina, and we're going to talk about the offensive coordinator. Now, at the end of the regular season in 2017, Muschamp fired Kurt Roper, elevated Brian McClendon from wide receivers coach to the OC. Biggest change I think you'll see this year for South Carolina's offense, with a lot of players coming back, you're going to see up-tempo, and a lot of it. That means that they're not going to take any longer than 17 seconds in between plays. At least that's the realistic goal. McClendon has already said it. The more plays you run, the more opportunities you have for yards and points. That's pretty elementary, but he's right about that. That, I think, is going to be good for the offense. Now, defensively, of course, that means that South Carolina's defense will probably be on the field a lot more often. We'll see how that takes its toll as the season progresses. But the goal right now for South Carolina, I think from their perspective, get more points. And a year ago, they only ranked 99th in the country in points per game. As I mentioned, it was 24. Quarterback does come back in Jake Bentley. I think he's a respectable quarterback. Not a great QB, but I think he's serviceable. 18 touchdowns last season. Did have the 12 picks, but did throw for almost 2,800 yards, completed 62% of his passes. And he has a lot of weapons around him. We're going to begin with the ground game, and the ground game definitely needs a pick-me-up. Only 111th in the country in rushing offense, averaging just barely over 120 yards per game. A.J. Turner is back. He had over 500 yards, including 3 touchdowns, and averaged 5.4 yards per carry. So he'll be used a lot, too. Rico Dowdle, this was a guy that they think is the most talented running back amongst the bunch, but really did not show it much. Didn't even average 4 yards per carry last year, and this was before his devastating injury, a leg injury that caused him to miss the last 5 games of the regular season, plus the first half of their bowl game against Michigan. But in the second half, he did play. In fact, he scored on an 18-yard touchdown run. So Rico Dowdle, if healthy, it may be his time to shine. Speaking of leg injuries, that's exactly what Deebo Samuel, the outstanding wide receiver for South Carolina, had just after 3 games of the 2017 season. Those first 3 games, Samuel looked like one of the best players in the country. Had 3 touchdown receptions, had 1 touchdown on the end around, and 2 more on special teams. Right, he had 6 touchdowns in the first 3 games, but a broken leg caused him to miss the final 10 games of the season. But he looks like he's ready to play this year. And if healthy, if fully healthy, one of the best receivers in the SEC. Or Trey Smith, he's a big target. You get him back. Shi Smith had 3 touchdowns. And the guy that really stepped up after the Samuel injury last year for South Carolina, Brian Edwards. And he was very productive. 64 catches, almost 800 yards receptions, and 5 touchdowns. Big loss, though, for South Carolina is going to be that of Hayden Hurst, the tight end. Decided to leave a year early to become a high NFL draft pick. Offensive line returns 3 of the 5 starters, including a couple of seniors at left tackle, Dennis Daly at 6'6", 312, and the right guard in Zach Bailey. You've heard that old saying, right? Opportunity knocks. Well, South Carolina, well, they created opportunities in 2017. 28 takeaways. That was tops in the SEC. South Carolina's defense definitely knew how to create turnovers. In fact, their plus 11 turnover margin, 13th best in the country. The Gamecocks this season have a big challenge, though, replacing 6 of those 11 players that made those takeaways possible. One good thing, though, for South Carolina, at least one good thing, will be that defensive line. And of the 26 sacks that South Carolina had last season, 6 of them came from one player, DJ Wonnum. Wonnum at defensive end is a nightmare for opposing tackles and tight ends to try to block. He's a 6'5", 258, but can get into the backfield, and he had 13 tackles for loss as well. Defensive tackles, The Gamecocks should be in pretty good shape, returning Javon Kinlaw at 320 pounds and Keir Thomas at another tackle. Thomas had 38 tackles in 2017. But the linebackers will be missing a big-time player in Sky Moore, one of only 15 players in the history of NCAA football to lead his team in tackles for 4 years. You just don't replace a guy like that. But you do have coming back T.J. Brunson, who's a junior, occupying the middle linebacker spot, 88 stops a year ago. So you're getting production from him. Bryson Allen Williams at the strong side linebacker. Hope the shoulder is fine. It was giving him problems previously, now entering his senior year. Biggest area of concern I would have for this Gamecock team would be the secondary. An area where last year they gave up almost 225 yards per game through the air. That's 5th worst in the SEC. And you only get one full-time starter back as Chris Lamons, your safety, and DJ Smith, the corner, have departed. So Rashawn Fitton now becomes the only full-time starter back from that secondary entering his senior year. He did have 48 stops at the corner position. A guy who can play the nickel or the safety position, that's Jemias Williams, whom as a freshman got some productivity with 38 tackles. And at the safety spot, you have Stephen Montauk, leading interception player for the Gamecocks. He had 3 picks in 2017. Mixed reviews, though, for the special teams. Punting should be good in this area. 43.5 yards per boot is what Joseph Charlton averaged. But the kicking game, yeah, it was a little scary. 14 of 25 is all they had last season, including just 4 made kicks out of 14 from beyond 40 yards. You want to make an immediate nationwide impact? Beat Georgia on September 8th. Of course, that's easy to say, much tougher to accomplish, but you get the defending SEC champions at home that second game of the season. On the whole, this schedule is really not that bad for the Gamecocks. In fact, they could start 3-1 or 4-0, of course, with an upset over the Bulldogs. September 29th, though, at Kentucky. Don't take that game for granted. Last year, the Wildcats went into Columbia, South Carolina, and upset the Gamecocks. Second half of the schedule, you'll notice Texas A&M, their natural rival from the West, is on it, but this time you get them at home. That might be a revenge game as well. Tennessee, they'll still be in rebuilding mode, and Ole Miss is the worst team in the SEC West, in my opinion. So it could very well be a 7-2, maybe an 8-1 type start for SC, but 2 of those final 3 games will be tough ones at the Swamp against the Gators, and of course you close out the season with your interstate rival, one of the best teams in the country, in Clemson. South Carolina, I could see them having an 8-9 win type season. I think the offense will be better, but the defense is not going to be as good. I'll look for the Gamecocks to finish 3rd in the SEC East. That's my look at South Carolina. See you next time.